in the field of transport. So the audience and the speakers know each other quite well. The conditions, the circumstances have changed. Transportation flows have changed as well. So the opportunity and capability to use other international corridors requires us to be quick. We want to find the solutions. We have some accumulated experience, and we want to build into the changed environment. We are developing shared common approaches. It will require us to make changes into the logistic setup. So some operators will change, will be replaced, and state bodies, of course, support us. Those bodies, governmental bodies that are responsible for transportation. So let us discuss these topics. I'm asking you as the moderator, not to be precise and to the point. Do not make lengthy presentations because we know the general subject pretty well. So let us be focused. And I want some interaction, not just the speakers and the audience, but let us communicate, debate if necessary, because we are all professionals in this room. And I think it will be more interesting and engaging if we are dynamic. So 5 to 7 minutes, that's the most to the presenters without general background of your company, because we can go on the internet and find other details on the company. So if you agree to this logic and to this timeline, then everyone stays engaged and interested. Let me begin our discussion by giving the floor to Mr. Kazhoshev Arazbek with the video address. He is the Minister of Energy and Infrastructure of Eurasian Economic Committee. So let us listen to his and see his welcome address and how Eurasian Economic Commission sees the transportation development at Eurasian continent. Dear participants of the International Forum, dear ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Eurasian Economic Commission and on my own behalf, let me welcome all the participants of the 17th TransTech International Forum. Today, the Eurasian continent is becoming the flagship of the regional integration, the integration that is focused primarily on the interests of the countries of the Eurasian Economic Union and the countries of Greater Eurasia. Integration aspirations and drive to create a single market of goods, services, capital, and human resources in the Union space fully apply to transport and logistic routes. In this connection, under modern conditions, the key focus in the activities of our countries is driven towards achieving the goals of territorial connectivity, transportation, multimodality, sustainable mobility of the population, and of course, towards the full-scale digitalization of economic sectors. At the same time, the main core of further integration transport reforms is aimed at organizing an effective ecosystem of digital transport corridors and the creation of digital infrastructure and digital services. For the accelerated and advanced development of common Eurasian territory, where many commodities markets function, it is vital to have a developed network of transport, logistics, and customs infrastructure that is receptive to intelligent technologies. After all, it is technology today that forms the potential for overcoming the global challenges faced by the modern world. As you can see, the world is developing rapidly. The transformation of various sectors, which a few decades ago might have taken a long time, is now changing very quickly. Ultimately, the use of new technologies in various economy sectors, including transport and logistics, increases productivity and competitiveness, and can act as a driver for economic growth and society well-being. I wish the forum to achieve its goals. I express my gratitude to the organizers for consolidating their efforts to develop international transport corridors and to form a new legal transport logistics system in Eurasia. Thank you. Let us applaud to Mr. Kajoshev's address. Arazbek Razbekovich, in fact, set up the tone for our discussion, and I suggest let us move along the geography in our speeches. I think Alberto Grisone, our colleague, has already woken up, whether he is in Switzerland or Italy. So let us hear their take on the current situation and how they readjust to the conditions that they operate in when it comes to cargo transportation.
Альберто. Вот, ну, Альберто, видимо, сейчас...
Well, probably Alberto went up to get up his cup of coffee. I know he raises early in the morning. So then let us do like this. I will give the floor to Andreev Dmitry. He is the general director of STM. Andreev Ognan Dmitrov. Thank you, and good morning, dear colleagues. Well, it's a bit unexpected, but I'm extremely pleased to be the next speaker. I had certain points to bring across, and this is quite a particular case that I wanted to share with you. Roughly, we are an automator for logistic processes of foreign affairs. So we automate cargo transportation by rail. So I would like to share our optimization of electronic paper flow and document flow. We are engaged in automation of processes. So logistic processes are the same. So you consider Alexander the Great's time, and since his time onward, logistics is about moving cargoes, goods, sometimes people. So there are challenges as we move all these items, and the challenges are known. Of course, we now live in a highly dynamic environment, whether it's a progress or not, but global changes are very rapid. So looking back on my life, I'm not that old, but I've experienced several global major revolutionary changes in the world. And of course, it impacts how we work in logistics. We now move massive volumes of goods, and it gives rise to a variety of specifics and particular cases. And I wanted to share a particular case with you. Some says that the devil is in the details. Together with the devil, details are about the success of your project. Briefly, so that's what's happening when we have the declaration submitted to the port for the cargoes. Now you can submit your declaration in an electronic format. Now there are no severe challenges. So once the declaration is submitted, we can get the permission to load the ship and let it go. And it is related to finances, to tax rebates, etc. So what is the bottleneck in some locations? And I wanted to show you how we found a solution to a particular case. So, amidst this excellent process, the permission to load requires the terminal to have a paper with a seal, with a stamp. Say, once your declaration is complete, we must go and knock on the door of the inspector, and you bring real papers. You get it stamped, sealed, and then for the port terminal, it allows to continue the loading. So the Federal Tax Service requires papers as well. This is the wished for paper. That's exactly how this document is laid out. Of course, some data is blurred to keep commercial secrets, and we need to get this stamp. It requires much time, it increases expenses, and the possibility of errors when you transfer paper into the electronic format. And there are two options how it could be solved. So we have a client's app, a client's application. So the order for shipment is filled in the app. The Federal Tax Service gets it signed with the inspector, and then it is further sent to the system, either of this loading terminal, port terminal. That's how the document, the same paper document, looks in the e-format. So this is the entire loop. And you can see the signatories. And the receiver of the paper is Container Terminal St. Petersburg, and it was sent through the app by the sender, and then it is accepted remotely by the terminal's electronic system. There is no need to walk to bring papers, and we have hundreds of such papers shifted through the system. Now we have the port at Vladivostok, another electronic system. So, and again, through IP, through the integrated system, the paper gets electronically per month. It's about 800 electronic papers. Thank you. And just to wrap up, my presentation is brief. As you see, I wanted to save some time for other speakers. But our discussion is quite broad, as Mr. Bessonov said. So let me identify some other points. The most things that are needed for automation, both via rail, by sea, or by air transportation, there is no will to cooperate between participants. So this lack of will plus probably there is not enough understanding, and we need time to word these challenges and start deciding them. So my IT colleagues quite rarely understand what they automate, and we value those who understand the core of the challenge.
For the shipping companies, the way, the attitude they have to the digitalization is similar to Excel tables. You could add some macros and everything will work promptly and fast. You do not need to invent anything new. So the message, the idea is to more actively interact. If ourselves, IT people, and our colleagues do not improve our competences in our spheres, then we will not be able to talk the same language, and we will experience problems always. Well, you said that right. And I gave you the floor in the beginning on purpose, because in the beginning, when we started our round table, we thought of figuring out what do we have available. Your technology is very good, and it is focused on the port of Vladivostok. You brought a lot of effort to have this technology operating properly. There is also Intertron technology developed jointly with RZD, Russian Railways. It's also aimed at Vladivostok and Nakhodka. And I want to give the floor to Larisa Korshunova, the Director for Interaction with the State Bodies of OTLK ERA company. And she is very well aware of how to deal with customs. She used to work in customs herself. And together with Inessa and Larisa, they both aim at making a similar technology for processing and interaction of port facilities with the vessel and with the railway trains. In the same sphere, we want to bring together several technologies. Not that some technology is better, the other is worse, but for the shipping purposes, this would bring more value for the whole community. Well, certainly, thank you for the opportunity to say a few words to what Agnan said a few minutes ago. When people say that logistics do not understand the IT functions, I work in a company which has a serious attitude to this sphere. And in the room, we see representatives of large logistics companies who do not only pay attention to this issue, but they have this as a strategy for their development long term. And they developed such strategy 1-2 years ago. So the devil is not in such details, but rather in something different. And it was said that in the market there are examples of very effective cooperation with such largest shipping company as RZD, and digitalization is at the very high level there. Our colleagues in RZD are developing the platforms for the purposes of digitalization of specific functions, where we then have the tools available to operate. And probably I will switch, Gennady, the whole story to a different direction. Businesses have the opportunity to agree. There are some vivid examples in the Russian Federation that GIS EPD system has been implemented promptly for transportation purposes. In the nearest future, especially next year, the system will be switched to RZD processes, to Russian Railways processes. Certainly our company is participating in the process. We are an integrated company which operates together with the railways in the Eurasian area. And those issues have become acute in the pandemic conditions. Especially last year, those issues became so acute, so important. It's not only an issue of lack of experts, specialists in the market, but quite often in our union, not every company is able to sign agreements, sign contracts, and they're not ready for interaction. Some are not ready for the implementation of new technology, and Agnan mentioned the e-commerce and e-paperwork. In a seaport, it seems to be working fine, because in the Eurasian Union, we are probably the largest state, which has the largest maritime operations, but our technology is not the best out of best, but at least among our partners, we have moved such technology. And there is quite a range of them implemented in Russia already. However, not all partners in the Eurasian Union are prepared to implement them as well. However, if we see examples of railway companies agreeing with specific businesses in specific regions, and since we have such examples, when such empty fitting car wagons are being transported via 3 countries, then this is a trend towards switching to large-scale cargo operations. We have also understanding in the transportation unit that we have to be more active in promoting such agenda, and Yelena will touch upon, most likely she will touch upon, the application of such tools in China as one of the major partners of ours at this phase. When we switch to the interaction between businesses and the state, here is where we start having the issues, because there's no flexibility, there's no required pace of decision-making. And Gennady, certainly I see that the target for the CCTT to become a platform which will enable businesses and the state agreeing and hearing each other, especially when talking about the digitalization. Hopefully, next year will be a breakthrough, since that large scale, that huge territory of Eurasian Union would continue to be and will actually be more competitive, so that everyone understand that we are not only shipping, but we are shipping goods using the state-of-the-art digitalized services. And certainly we do have issues, as I said, some questions around our interaction between businesses and the state. And there's also a specific issue of the state being able to hear our demands, since they have to promote our processes, and we then have to adjust our processes to the current situation. Svetlana, thank you. Just to explain, to clarify what Agnian Dmitrov said in the very beginning, it does not mean that one technology is better than the other. The idea is that the technology, which is built in Intertran, it's not only interaction in the port, it's also preparation of the customs documents, which have to be accepted in the countries where the cargo is moving. It's the third-party countries. It is the transit countries. It's also involving interaction with other railway administrations, with other legislation. And Svetlana, it seems that this change should remain in this path. What should we focus on the Eurasian Union? Once again, to reiterate, every technology is worthy. And this is the idea that we have to focus, that technology is the base and we have to move on. Thank you, Gennady. Dear colleagues, good morning. Larissa also spoke in the same topic, saying that Eurasian Commission is such a platform which is intended to unite, to join us together. And it's high time to implement, because it's a slow pace, although we're moving step by step from developing recommendations towards making the plans. But the eventual implementation of such projects, the output is very slow. And this is the summary that we have come up to in recent time. This is what we have to strive to in the Union, that although legislation and technology is developing and evolving, we know that in the Eurasian Union, every republic has specifics in terms of their finances, their legislation. But we have a clear target. Our presidents set a goal that by 2025 we should have a joint market of services. It should be involving transportation, technology. We move slowly but surely. And it is in our platform that we involve the transportation diplomacy, the so-called diplomacy. And to discuss our issues, we sit together at round tables, and it is the other countries which have not joined the Union yet, but who want to participate, like Uzbekistan, Moldova has not joined yet. We certainly sit down and develop ways forward. What have we done? Just recently, we prepared a recommendation for development of the logistic hubs. We heard our minister recently that we are to develop the corridors and we have to build the logistic centers, logistic hubs, which would enable development of the infrastructure for the corridors of transportation. And transportation is not only it's actually a blood system of the economy, so to say, and there should be joint approaches to the digital economy in the Eurasian Union. There will be several items which will be published soon on the website of the Eurasian Commission, talking about the recommendations, namely the recent recommendation for joint shipments. And next year, I suppose we have to be more active in our operation with the business. We have a business council, and thus working with the business on part of the state bodies, we see their interest. And many companies approach us saying that they need this and that legislation to facilitate their work. So it is an open discussion platform where we bring in the recommendations, where many processes involving integration between our countries are discussed. And we cover such issues as joint transits. There are several agreements already signed between the countries, and the ministries in our countries are reviewing this agreement. There is a pilot project for 3 countries to start and to try the shipping companies' operations between the countries. That system involves, again, digitalization, providing security, transportation security, and so on. Also, the idea is to continue developing the ecosystems. We also have to launch the e-customs service, so that by developing the cross-border points, what is being assigned by the Federal Customs Service, they are actively tackling the issues at the Kazakhstan and border with China, at those border points. The system of exchange of the single system for the distribution of information. Everything that I said, all of that combined, those are the factors which allow us to develop further. Briefly speaking, I would say that that would be all, and I would wish everyone the success. Only thanks to our joint efforts and your willingness, we will move forward. Thank you.
Вот,
Thank you very much, Elena. And let me pick up on where you left. And I would like that the general director of EBIT Trans, the Mr. Slatkevich Andrei Nikolaevich, Bella Intender Trans. This is Transport and Logistics Center in Belarus. So share with us whether you work solo or you're integrated. Do we have the speaker with us? Well, he's not with us, sorry. Okay, hopefully he will hear us later. I just wanted to continue along the logistics line. Anyway. No, I'm here. I'm remotely, but I'm with you. Well, because we see your name tag, name holder, but you are not in the audience. Andrei Nikolaevich, have you heard my question addressed to you? Yes, perfect and clear. And I'll be brief. Indeed. There are some IT solutions. In Belarus, you have an excellent IT sector. You personally did a lot to digitize processes. You have your own patented technologies. Whether you connect with others, is there in Belarus a will to integrate information systems? The floor is yours. Thank you again, Gennady Ivanovich. Thank you for giving me the floor and inviting me to participate. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it in person, but I'm with you and ready to share our experience. Briefly, we based our digitalization, and in fact, digitalization is in the focus of our great attention, and we have the needed resources. So the base is the understanding. So we understand that the market gets reoriented and looks westward. Well, instead of westward, looks now eastward. And logistic chains are changing. So we integrated shippers who work at borders, because in 2019 we set up our own transporter according to the ERC, European standards of the track. And we have certain warranties on under different track sizes, like 1,620 and over 2,000. So we, in fact, offer quality services between east, west, and east. And thanks to all these branch lines and very strict schedule for transportation, we are capable to have to offer quality service both in European and Chinese territories. We offer first and last mile services. We work with major cargo carriers in Warsaw, in Poland in general, in Germany, India, Netherlands, and the stock of containers, of empty containers, which we have in European terminals, we deliver them thanks to our cargo carrier to Belarus, to Meritz. And there we can ensure timely exports. So, dear colleagues, as you see the current situation, the next step is digitalization. I completely support Larisa Pavlovna and the TLK. With them, we are engaged in an active cooperation. On the slide, you see a layout for the current system of operations. This is digitalization in this direction, west to east. But we need to improve. And our European carrier and us, in October 2020, we set up an epicenter. And it allows to proceed with shipments based on legally significant electronic papers. So from Poland to Belarus, we have this electronic paperwork support in December 21st, and since April 21, for 18 months already, we have regular empty wagons and container transportation between Poland, Belarus, and Russia, according to a strict schedule. So as transportation is based on legally attested electronic papers. So the information goes together with the empty containers and wagons. So, and from epicenter, the information goes to Belarusian railroad information systems, and then electronic waybill is further transferred to the informational center of Russian railroads. You see the movements and the layout, general layout on the slide. So the next step that we are already implementing in this e-paper exchange, this is the share of electronic documents between Brest and Zabaikalsk transportation. And here we plan to engage electronic cooperation of carriers. The entire package of ERC documents electronically is moved from information system in Europe to Belarus and later on to Russian railroads and to customs at paperless principles in order to ensure cargo transit. As you see, it's a stepwise system. The next step will be for transportation further to China, again, along the same principles. And we believe once up and running, this will give a new impetus and drive to improve this service and to provide our customers with a full-fledged package of services along east-west-east and west-east-east in all these directions. Thank you very much, Andrei Nikolaevich. We are happy that you were able to connect. You hear, you discuss things with us. Excellent. Can we ask the General Director of Neptune Logistic Group? An excellent person and a beautiful woman, Bonnie Zhu. Her company, and she brings goods across Kazakhstan, Russia, Belarus to Europe. Bonnie, are you with us?
Супер!
So it's my turn.
Excellent.
Бонни, я хотел бы попросить вас
Yes, it's your turn.
ответить на...
Bonnie, can you answer the following question? You heard our discussion, right? So in China, do you know about these technologies? Do you use them?
We use. Yes, we use technology. We have our own business systems like MBS. So we also have OMS, SCIM, and also we have EDI to connect with our customers and the suppliers. And of course, we would like to. We hope, for example, Chinese railway company and Kazakhstan or maybe RZD, we can connect each other. And I think it's more help for customers to make a faster reloading in the board, make a faster growth in the board, I think. So we hope, sure, we have a system, digital system like that.
Bonnie? So, my question to you. Do you know about these information systems and technologies used in Eurasia countries when it comes
For the systems.
Intertran or the system mentioned by Mr. Mr. Andreev? So in China, you have your own technological information systems, right? But once you arrive to the border, then things ought to be redone. Again, is it possible to couple, to connect these systems, not in terms of technology, but in terms of probably we need discuss different options and share information about our systems and setting up mechanisms that may be different, but they are, in principle, they are on the same base, on the same foundation. So, what is your opinion?
I hope everyone we can join this system and we can develop in this system together. But now I don't think the system is very useful for the marketing because actually we don't use, I think we don't use the systems. Dio, are you online? Yeah.
Вы меня слышите?
Да, да.
Yes, yes, we can hear you. Yes, yes, we can hear you.
Тем не менее, Бонни, вот хочу сказать следующее.
Well, Bonnie. So we need to combine this system somehow. Can we set up a platform where we can discuss the integration issues further? We have different groups, Ms. Talani, but unfortunately, the group is not working currently. Probably at the Coordination Council or at the Eurasian Economic Council Commission, we can discuss these challenges, because we have to develop a uniform technology from A to Z, from where cargo starts to where it comes, from the beginning till the end. And once the system is universal, then Chinese customs and Kazakhstan, but in Eurasia we have a unified customs. And then further on in Belarus, where they work with Polish railroads and forwarders, we may use the integrated system. This is our dream, but how we can practically implement it?
I think it's our dream too. It's our dream too. I think this system.
Вот сейчас.
Indeed. And currently, Russian railroads propose to run a pilot project. Are you ready to join in and participate in this pilot project? So we will run a train. So we take a train and run it through this space and actually try out different cooperation mechanisms. We'll discuss the details further. We are not going to head-to-head compare your technology with ours, but find interfaces where we can meet each other. Are you ready to join such a pilot project?
Вы готовы, я вижу.
I can see in your face that you are ready.
We are. It's our dream too. You know, from end-to-end service, especially for the customers, they need from, for example, from the factory to the shop, from end-to-end business model. This morning, I have had a conversation, a meeting with media, the biggest factory in China. And they told us that the document, you know, when they deliver the containers from the factory to Moscow, they needed to make many documents. So it's very difficult to make the document transfer many times, several times, and by each agent. So we are talking about AEO, which by the customers like that system. So if this system can be connected with the customer's system, I think it's more useful for the customers. So we are really looking forward to join this.
Да, вот здесь есть реплика.
There is a side comment from Larissa. Good morning, Bonnie, if it's morning in your place. I'm so pleased to see you. Let me respond that indeed it is difficult to bring goods to Russia due to a huge paper package. But the reverse is also true. Bringing exports from Russia and Belarus to China, again, requires huge amount of papers. That's a challenge, and therefore I'll support you that we need to implement our agreements. As you said, agreements between customs services, national customs services. Colleagues, 3 years ago, we signed a contract between the Eurasian Economic Union, between the customs services and with the customs service of the People's Republic of China. And there is a goal to help exchange of information. And then when it comes to transportation or as part of the mutual trade, we will stop transferring these loads of papers, as you mentioned them. And it will enable us to spend less effort. And we will, at the same time, ensure the flow of information.
Then certainly in this respect, on your part as a Chinese businessman, you should bring an impulse to your government structures, your customs, for such agreements to be reached as promptly as possible. Well, now it is clear. And now, Bonnie, there is a lack of communication, I guess. We miss each other, I guess. So please tackle the issues of pandemic, and hopefully we will come to you. You will come to us. We need to talk. We need to discuss. And I would like to express my gratitude for such informal answering of questions. I intentionally do not allow people just simply reading out the speeches. We have to have a discussion openly. So I'd like to wish you all the best and have a great day. And I would like to bring another person online, the person who shares my opinion in this respect concerning interaction with the proper specialists, Alberto Grisone. I hope that you were able to drink a cup of coffee. Can you hear us, Alberto? It seems that he switched to Barolo. Well, we will keep attempting to get a connection. The reason why I thought of giving a floor to Alberto Grisone, since he is representing European business, namely Hupac Intermodal, a large company of liquid cargoes. And hopefully we'll have him back here and get him connected. And now let me give the floor to General Director of Optimalog, Georgi Vlastopoulou. You heard our discussion previously, right? Where are you in such discussion, in such a process? How do you see this path of discussion? I certainly, and thank you first for the invitation, for the time given to me. Let me switch, Please, could you switch my presentation? Prior to the slides, speaking of digitalization, you need to have one single thing, actually, is the will. You need to have the will. I'm reading the news that Huawei and Xiaomi have agreed to delete the video automatically from devices of Chinese citizens depicting protests, open protests. So there is a will among two companies who want to suppress such political unrest in the country. And see, there is a will available, and then you simply intensify the integration processes. So there are some stumbling points which probably we're not aware of. But Yuri, what you just mentioned about deleting some videos which are not desired on the personal devices. How does this impact the logistic companies and shipping companies? I'm sure if we look at my slides, and I'm to talk about the container market. Frankly speaking, there are several things. You can look continuously at the burning fire or at a working process, but when we're experiencing problems, there is such a message to everyone. We have to bring in the fact that Russia is beyond the global container market. Our container flows are extremely low compared to the ones globally. We have been switched off, so to say, from the statistical process, from the global trends for container operations. We are simply not participating in that process. You can compare two numbers. Any container index, which dropped 4 times compared to peak points, and look at the freight rate at Shanghai-Vladivostok route. You can see there that the prices remain the same, but the global indexes, they dropped 4 times. We are from that market. And we have to look inside domestically, which issues do we have to provide stability of such flows and how we have to process them more effectively. I have to talk about it. There's a PDF document. Here's our technology. See, I have everything in the cloud to be able to send and forward, and here it takes time for uploading the PDF presentation. Now, a few words prior to the switch it on. We are actively building up the base with India, Iran, and Turkey, and some numbers are overwhelming already. Ourselves as logistics operator, which processes the foreign cargo flows, we track the numbers. We separate export turnover and import turnover of the Russian Federation, since we understand that the exports is mainly raw materials, coal, oil, and others, and imports are primarily what? It's the operation of the small businesses, mid-sized companies. And speaking of the export companies, there are mainly large-scale businesses. And I'm not even talking about such companies like FESCO or the ones affiliated with the state. I'm talking about the private companies, Russian companies. All participants of the economic process affirm that it is the private business which has to serve base for the normal economy. And here I have brought together an analysis of the turnover of the Russian Federation. The European Union Our turnover with them was at the level of $282 billion, $168 billion exports to China, and we were exporting actually more than importing from China. And 18%, therefore, is almost 18% is the share of China. After February 24th, this is how numbers look. In 10 years, we lost $53 billion, speaking specifically about imports with Europe, and also a drop by $40 billion with other so-called unfriendly states like Japan, Australia, and others, the ones who joined sanctions and so forth. The ones which confront Russia, so to say. So altogether, it's 93 billion. By the year end, we are expecting around $100 billion loss in high-tech, in mostly actually high-tech products, and we have to replace them somehow. This was understood and was announced back in March that country would switch over and focus on the East. As I said, 154 billion is our turnover with China, and you can see on the diagram 2021 is depicted on the first diagram, and we have exceeded $30 billion in terms of raw materials, oil, gas, and coal. We have not reached the numbers of 2021, and speaking of the dynamics and the growing trend, according to the estimates of the experts, since February 1st, actually, statistical data is closed, and this is not good for the businesses, because we used to have access, businesses used to have access, they knew where to find the added value, where the trend is moving. And now we are absolutely blind, not knowing where we have to move. And I'm sure that statistics needs to be depicted, needs to be demonstrated. However, despite that, if we judge by the customs duties, experts say that 43% of Chinese imports, it's 43% in 2021. We're the second. It seems to me that this is not a good situation, since the import flows should be balanced. And here it's almost 45%, 43%, it's Chinese products. Now, how do we service this amount of imports? We switched over to the East. It's clear that we lost almost 62% in container shipments in the Baltic Sea, in the Black Sea, plus 13% container shipments from Vladivostok, plus 2% in Zabaikalsk, plus 6% in Dostik via Kazakhstan. So that flow has relocated to the east. What have we enjoyed with this switch to the east? These are the issues which have to be resolved beyond just pure digitalization issue. Namely, one issue is lack of infrastructure. I mean, some infrastructure is available to process such volumes, but 147 million tons were transported by railways. There were requests from various raw materials mining companies, coal, oil, and so forth. Now, 25 to 30 million tons of just pure coal are expected to be transported, and that means that the infrastructure is not there to be capable to process such amounts. We have an issue in Vladivostok to process containers. We have some cargoes staying in the port for 40 days. In the morning, we got a message from the Far East that up to over 100 containers were transported in recent days, with the efforts taken on our part, on the part of the government and our president. Actually, the governments, local governments in the Far East, they approached the federal government talking about the issues associated with the lack of facilities and lack of capacities. And we have to extend such an infrastructure. The overload of the border crossing points in Zabaikalsk, for instance, 129 days of delay in Zabaikalsk, namely 13 days a month. And this is only for the trains which cannot cross the border. For 2022, there were 1225 requests for fast-track trains to run with cargoes. I may be wrong, and my colleagues will correct me if I'm wrong. There are also issues on the other side, on the Chinese railways. They're regulating the container trains which run to Russia, and starting from June, they started reducing quotas for various reasons. For containers stuck in Kazakhstan, remember, Larissa, we spoke in Almaty about this. So there are issues remaining in that sector too. And again, the pandemic measures which come into play again with tackling the COVID issues. And all of that breaks the pace and breaks the regularity of the logistics paths. And we have to process that large-scale import amount which comes to the Russian market. And it's the business which has to understand what needs to be done. I have 1 minute left.
In green bullets, that's business goals. The rest, in gray, we need major structural changes. Of course, we need to increase the grounds in the east. We also need to construct dry ports. The new bridges are to be inaugurated. We have a new bridge inaugurated, but we need the supporting infrastructure like terminals next to them, to the bridges. Well, in China, they say, great, we are happy with this new bridge, but we need to organize new cargo flows. At the FESCO sessions, I heard about new routes and new ports, Novorossiysk, even St. Petersburg. That's perfect. Increasing the possibilities of north to south, but takes too much time and it is too slow, and there are major challenges that are to be resolved at the state level. Additional agreements with China to regulate transportation flows. We need a certain agreement with China saying to them, guys, we are happy to work with you. Do not be afraid of secondary sanctions because you are kind of neutral. Please stay neutral. Next, balance between priorities of export and container trains, because till August, exports were in priority, and therefore we got slowed down and reduced volumes in containers. Well, you provided wrong digits. The fall was about between 6 to 8%, 6 to 8% in containers. 30%. Well, in general, 8%, but in transit, the fall is deeper. The speaker is not using the microphone. Russian railroads say that the total turnover will grow. Okay, God help us. Ivan Sergeyevich, later on, you will get the microphone and you'll provide the comment. Thank you for correcting my figures. Again, business steps. Diversify good flows, we need to use the capacity we have. The projects that are to be launched, they are the year 24 to year 30, and the cumulative the cumulative output will be 28, 35. We need to diversify, like send something through Vladivostok by rail or through Turkey, and detailed operations planning and control of changed shipment conditions. Some businesses today, they still say that they still live just thinking that you place an order, 5 to 10 days prior to your cargo is ready. No, you need to analyze and to plan in advance, and you have to integrate with your logistic operator to be perfectly aware about realistic supply dates and means. So we are in a situation that we have to adapt and be flexible in the current situation, because you can't change the situation. Thank you. I stayed within my time limit, I think. Well, you went beyond your time limit, but thank you very much, because your data was very useful and informative. That's why I didn't stop you. But let me respond to one point of yours, because sometimes the words is said, but the meaning didn't get through. And my answer is of a professional diplomat. When you say unfriendly countries, that's not a good terminology, because there are certain policies of governmental bodies which look unfriendly. And here at the Coordination Council, we try to keep the ties to preserve these links. And luckily, thank God we have them. Because unfriendly countries, they are countries with millions of people, with developed businesses. I'm so happy to hear, because of our TV, Russian TV, and foreign TVs say other things. I wanted to be politically correct, and you're very careful with words nowadays. Speak the truth, and do not confuse the policy pursued by government bodies in certain countries. And don't mix it with multi-centuries of friendship and links with other countries. Thank you very much, Gennady. You cured my sore soul. I am still here to cure you if you need. So we discussed cooperation with China. And therefore, I would like to connect Deputy General Director of Beijing Trans-Eurasia International Logistic. Mr. Duan, are you with us? Mr. Wang, are you with us?
Есть, он появился.
Okay, we can hear you and we can see you. Great. My question is to you. We see that the flows from China to Russia and vice versa are growing. And because of these big volumes, we have new challenges, because throughput of border crossing is limited, plus COVID restrictions. And it is clear that there are more offers to bring cargoes than the put through of the transport sector. So how to deal with it? The floor is yours.
Actually, between the China and Russia, especially this year, the cargo volume between them is have the rapid growth, as everybody can say. But actually, this kind of the situation can bring some kind of the congestion at the borders. I think that is that's a problem, especially between the China and Kazakhstan borders and the China and Russia borders. So maybe, in my opinion, is to solve this kind of problem is we need to make more focus on the construction of the borders of borders and some kind of this infrastructure of the borders need to be improved. Yes.
Прекрасно.
Excellent. And we are having a discussion here. You heard some points of view. Do you have anything to add?
You mean the more suggestion, maybe the more suggestion between the China and Europe, or China between the China and the Russian, especially apart from the border construction, maybe there's kind of as everybody said, we need to accelerate the process of the electronic data exchange. That is also very important. We need to improve the digital construction to realize. Okay. To realize the facilitation and the integration of the customs clearance, and we need to maybe look forward to the rapid promotion of the electronic information exchange work of the railway or customers along the way to reduce the inspection or the improve the inspection efficiency. Or maybe to some extent, this can improve the transport efficiency and ease the congestion of the border. And another way, maybe is another way to improve the, or maybe we can say the solutions. Maybe it's the transportation solutions for bulk goods, because with the increase of the freight volume between China and Russia, there's a lot of transportation demand for some bulk goods, such as the grains, such as the metal. So it is hoped that maybe the partners can work together to provide more appropriate transportation solutions for such kind of bulk goods. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dumang. Indeed, you support the ideas that were voiced here already, and you were very clear in terms of identifying items that needed to be tackled. Thank you very much for your cooperation. I would like to give the floor to General Director of United Oil and Gas and Chemistry Company, Mr. Zakharov. The floor is yours.
Я его как раз хотел оставить.
I was planning to leave to the end, since we approach new technology. We will change a bit, Alexander. So that we join together our two speeches. There was such a word said, a giant head of container, trans-container division of October Railways, Dmitry Melnichuk. They are part of Diela company. This is one of our major transportation and logistic holding companies. It is on a daily basis that they face such issues. Border crossings, lack of digital information, restricted throughput of Russian railways. Prior to giving the floor, let me say that quite often we criticize, and this is justified, that we criticize Russian railways. The volume of objectives and unresolved issues which have to be resolved by Russian railways has not been there for many years. Such volume has not been there yet for many years. especially the volume which is shipped to the Far East of the country. And Russian railways are dealing well with such new volumes. They have the capacities available. The measures which are taken today, I could bring 2-3 examples. There are dual trains which get implemented. Additional locomotives are brought to the Far East. Railway employees, they work 32 by 48 and not in 24 by 7. Namely, they take double efforts to process that amount of cargoes. So, Dmitry, we have requests from customers. There is understanding of how the Russian railways, how the company is functioning. How do we combine together the business interests and your logistic interests of your company? Gennady, thank you for giving me the floor, and thank you for characterizing our company as a giant. Could you switch on my presentation? It's not a heavy one. It's not a big one. And Georgi, I need a prior to the presentation is brought on screen, we could continue a discussion. Maybe without a presentation we could discuss. Because you'll bring the numbers, talk about the border crossings again, talk about technology. It's not a heavy presentation, as I said. It illustrates well what you mentioned. To continue the previous discussion, and actually we have only 5 minutes for that left. The system has adapted well, and to my mind, one of the milestones in the whole kaleidoscope of this year we had to tackle the issue of switching the transportation, the shipments from the Baltic region, and Northwest was left without containers. In 10 months, and in October, we've seen the statistics. It's a fall by 61%, and altogether 87 just in October in the northwest of the country. The Far East, it demonstrates growth. In the north, it's actually in the Black Sea area. It's some falling in volumes, but not that extensive. And speaking of containers altogether, the shipments have got reduced in all ports, in all port facilities. We have the growth in domestic container shipments and exports, which is obvious. Exports have dropped, and there are less and less containers being shipped. And Gennady, you were asking me about those issues. There was that route running through the port of St. Petersburg, providing the sufficient volumes to the Urals, to the eastern part of the country. Now there are new border crossings being utilized. The ones with the border on the border with China, in the far east of the country. There are new spheres which got developed. For instance, our company is offering shipments via Novorossiysk over to Turkey, and thus import there is growing. Last year was an excellent year for container shipments, but as to exports, the issue has been there already. And speaking of the infrastructure, when it comes to infrastructure, both railways and port infrastructure, what was done? There was some insignificant drop in transits due to sanctions and everything associated with them. On the export side, many issues could be resolved. Some multimodal services got replaced. For instance, in St. Petersburg, we have examples for various cargoes which get decontainered, so to say, when we reload cargoes from containers and put onto vessels. For instance, for chemical products, there are such bulky goods which are being transported in that way. In the northwestern part of the country, there are such examples, and also in the Far East and Azov and the Black Sea regions. Those areas allowed us to provide the necessary replacement of cargo shipments. From the borders, including the ports in the Far East, the growth of imports, we have enjoyed plus 65% growth. There are also available capacities for the reloading of goods from containers onto ships in Kaliningrad and St. Petersburg. To some extent, those ports are still being used. The measures which could be implemented additionally is the services, namely what was said by Georgi via China, deep sea infrastructure. This would balance our flows. And we have reserved capacity for railways to capture such growing volumes. As to the priorities and balancing the system, what was said today, how do we share this infrastructure? The two key issues which can be resolved, namely balancing exports, since export demand is more than covered, and this also affects the export revenue of the state. The priority stays with balancing the railway wagons, the railway cars, since there's quite often there are not enough cars to bring the export goods, and some of the imports could be covered by supply of half wagons. The domestic transportation also affects the situation, and we provide for domestic transportation as a shipping company. For the Far East, we have container trains which run from St. Petersburg to major cities of the country, including Vladivostok in the Far East. There are delays of some trains, and those trains, when they're bringing food, products, there must be specific schedule provided for them to bring those goods in proper shape to the customers, and such services need to be provided for the trains to operate between the cities. My report, my speech is probably not that heavy. I hope I did not mention too many numbers. You mentioned this whole algorithm, and Transcontainer is actually part, as it was mentioned, part of this big holding company dealer. It is a large company which will be expanding their influence on the northwestern part of the country. This is why he was mentioning the containers available, and we would like to wish you fruitful work And we hope that you will enjoy a synergy of both container transportation and maritime shipments. And hopefully Diela as a holding company will be one of the major business players in the Eurasian area, in the Southeastern Asia region. And we certainly will be very happy with having such new player coming into the global arena. And Larissa, please, I cannot reject your comments. I thought of adding some items to the topic raised by Vladimir. We had about 15%, logistics covered from the Moscow hub, then running to the other cities in the Russian Federation. It was on Monday that we discussed this topic, and I think it's related to the issue of how we balance the railway flows. It's just a fact of what we have today. I think there is an opportunity to discuss. It's always my pleasure to discuss such issues with you. It is the third attempt that I will make to approach Alberto Grisona, and hopefully Alberto is here. We cannot hear Alberto yet.
Can you hear me now?
Очень здорово, что
This is so nice that we see your face, that you had some coffee, and probably you heard our discussion before. How do you manage with the objectives that you face? We don't need to additionally represent one of the major container shipping company. Alberto, could you tell us, are you able to tackle the current issues? How do you work with the current objectives? And please stay within 5 minutes if possible.
Thank you very much, Gennady Ivanovich. Thank you very much for the invitation. Normally, I am a sportive man on the table with good kitchen and good wine. And since some months, I'm becoming a real sportive man in acrobatic issues due to the international constellation. But I think that we are quite successfully moving. As we discussed last week during the very interesting general meeting of CCPT, we are still providing our services, connecting Europe with Russia, with the CIS countries, and also with the Far East. What we notice is that concerning China or the Far East, there is a rising problem over the demand of transport via railway, which is partly because of the international situation, but partly also because of the extreme fast and aggressive decrease of the sea freight rates, because they are going down on a rate between 7 and 12%. Give you an idea now, it is quite popular to see prices from Shanghai to the port of Geneva, which are below 2,500 USD for 40 foot container. And this is, of course, something that is bringing to a lot of modification, and in my opinion, is bringing to a very remarkable change of the geographic or geofence movement of the shipment by rail to China. Because I noticed that there is a booming and a very big increase of the shipment between China and Russia. We also receive a lot of questions from that point of view, which is also something that we are thinking to change. There are a lot of demand from China into Turkey, and we are also registering a very strong interest in the market to move from Turkey into Russia, which is also something which is quite interesting. And we are considering And we are already offering also the solution all rail, going from Turkey via Kars, Baku, Yalama, and then up to Russia, mixing a little bit of middle corridor and north-south corridor, if I can say so. These are the things that we are at this moment seeing as more interesting. As I said, we are also still offering more or less on a weekly basis the services also connecting Europe into Russia. Of course, are having some considerations every week because of the situation. But we try to be resilient, and we notice that the quality of running the railway through Russia is quite good at this moment. The support of Russian railways from that aspect is quite remarkable. What is a pity, because we are losing a lot of opportunities for the chemical cargo and the G cargo, is that at this moment the congestion in the far eastern port of Russia, Vostochny and Vladivostok, I don't know if any colleague already mentioned before me, it is still very remarkable. There are still waiting time up to 20-25 days before to move the container inside of the port. And this is also extremely complicated to find allotment on the ships, which is from one side a good signal for the economy and for the bilateral relation between Russia and China, but of course for whom is trying to create innovation in the concept is sometimes create some complications. So if there are any possibility to create some faster corridor or solutions in order to improve this timing or having more allotment of space, that will be, of course, a very big help in order to keep alive also, or better keep alive also the possibility to move tank container and chemical cargo between Europe and Far East, not only China, but also Japan and Korea via the seaport in Vostochny. I think I more or less touched all the points you asked me, and I'm in the time. And thank you again for giving me the opportunity to be part of you.
Спасибо большое.
Thank you very much, Alberto. You were so precise in saying that we are going through a tough period because we have to work in parallel, developing infrastructure, technologies, and at the same time keep on this cooperation. So personally, we thank you and the HUPA company group for being pioneers, for searching constantly solutions that year to year increase volumes moving towards Eurasian corridors and through Eurasian corridors. Thank you so much, and I hope we will continue cooperating. We really, really value your opinion. Thank you. Thank you, Alberto from HUPAC. And as we continue on the subject touched by Alberto, how shall we improve the infrastructure using just the rail, tracks, and wheels? But shall we use something else? Let us look into the future and discuss the development of new technologies. And let me give the floor to Alexander Zakharov, the General Director of United Gas Oil and Gas and Chemical Company, and then Tiao Zhang, General Director Deputy for External Foreign Affairs from XY Group. So first, Mr. Zakharov, and then Tiao Zhang. Well, this forum is very important for us, and the speakers, the audience are very experienced in the audience. Here we have professionals from the business, but I am personally a newcomer. And therefore, I'm very thankful to you, Gennady Ivanovich, and to all colleagues providing us the opportunity to speak. I would like to briefly describe what's happening in the very important Far Eastern complex. Can you give me 90 seconds more. Okay, you have 120 seconds more to your time limit, 2 minutes more. Because the scope of my task is very important. So at the new bridge that was launched at the border crossing Nizhny Leninskoye, Tunzhen. Nizhny Leninskoye, that's a small settlement at the Jewish Autonomous Republic, Jewish Autonomous Region. It borders with China, Tunzhen. This bridge was constructed from China towards Russia. I remember like 4 years ago. And then our Chinese colleagues already created the infrastructure needed for transshipment of non-hazardous substances like ore, wood, agricultural products, coal. At the Russia side, we complete the construction of the railroad bridge. And today, the bridge is there. April 2022, this year, the first train went over. At the Russia's side, what do we have today? We have about 5 organizations, companies, which pulled their efforts together in order to develop transport logistics complex at the near bridge territory. My company, the United Oil, Gas and Chemistry Company, is a player in improving the near bridge territory. So, and we deal with transshipment of hazardous substances. That's our core business. The throughput capacity of this new train bridge is about 23 million tons per annum. Some say if you consider the additional capacity and the workflow, up to 28 million tons of cargoes per annum. As I said, the flow is very diverse, multiple goods. We see the onset of China exports coming to Russia and vice versa through the Transport and Logistics Center. This is in a nutshell what's happening at this spot now. We have a specific niche there, and our business is dealing with the standard Russian goods exported, like liquefied hydrogen gas, raw oil, petrol products, aircraft fuel, mazout, heavy fuel oil, everything related to raw materials. This is our business. Our terminal has some specifics. And together with our partners from China, and our partner is sitting at the table, represented by one of the heads of this company, Zhao Zhen, and he will soon take the floor for more details. He will provide more details. And we planned our joint business to develop imports from China to Russia. And it will be the supply of equipment so much needed in Russia today, both in the energy segment and in adjacent areas. So, colleagues, we decided to identify our field. Dela, that's one company, they deal with container shipments. They are experts there. We found a different area, supplies from People's Republic of China. Imports high-tech equipment drastically needed by Russian companies. In addition to equipment, we will bring in high-tech materials. So this is our focus. At the East Economic Forum, we signed with a Chinese corporation represented by Mr. Zhao Zhan, we signed a strategic agreement. And this is not of so many agreements which opens today for us without sanctions, trying and developing this area. With a great pleasure, I'm giving the mic to Mr. Zhenzhen, and I will ask him to give more information about this group, about the Energy Corporation. They work from Harbin, Chaozan province, and they have a very interesting and diverse business. If you have any questions, asking for more details, I am a newcomer. This is my first time at this conference. Some colleagues are more experienced in the audience. They represent Russian railroads. Of course, I will not give you all this, the list of challenges that we have kind of rail jams and we don't have enough railroad capacity, etc. It's all in the plans. We know about these challenges, and we are supported by the presidential plenipotential representative in Far East. So we regularly have meetings. So we tightly cooperate with relevant ministries and corporations. The state knows about these challenges, and we do everything to resolve this task and as soon as possible to launch this transport and logistic complex. At the end of my presentation, before giving the floor to the next speaker, let me ask you, I loved this discussion and the openness of your experts. If it's possible, remember the name of my company, because we want to be part of this community, and we put our best efforts to resolve the challenges. We want to be part of this community and discussion to make sure that we make the right steps and to speed up towards the goal which we have. Thank you.
Александр Станиславович, я хочу сказать, если хотите...
And I thought of saying that if you want additional information, apply to Coordination Council of Transit. We usually work in such a manner. There's no sense in just presenting anything. All of that information is available. Zhao Zhan, please, the floor is yours. It's not the first time that you are speaking at our venues, and we have some time restrictions, which you are aware of, I'm sure. Thank you. Thank you. Alexander. You are our reliable strategic partner. Dear Gennady, dear ladies and gentlemen, hello everyone. We consider that for the Eurasian transportation, we need to have new logistic and technology solutions. And the reason why? Because in China, there are many people complaining how difficult it is to get a confirmation from RZD, Russian Railways, item 12. Russian Railways says, guys, look, there is a line at the border crossing points for 2 months, half a year, and how can we receive a confirmation later? This means that due to lack of trans-border infrastructure capabilities, Yelena said that this is a technically weak point, not between Kazakhstan and China, but such situation is between Russia and China. to resolve the issues of the volume of cargoes. An innovative conveyor system was developed, which allows to transport the bulky goods of 10 tons per hour. But the total volume of such goods could reach 70 million tons per annum. If we build such terminals between China and Russia, then we will be proud to resolve the issue of shipments between Russia and China. And thus, we will provide the necessary throughput capacity of railways. Together with our honorable partner, we have developed another option. We will be jointly launching a project on resolution on resolving the issue of the kinds of goods. For instance, in one of the Chinese provinces, there is a strategy for gasification. Of course, the power of Siberia pipeline will allow to resolve that issue to some extent, but China experiences a lack of open soil for construction. Mr. Xiaozan, you have just 3 minutes left. So, first of all, we can supply by LNG, supply gas in the form of LNG, but it's not allowed. And from Russia, we can receive gas in the gel form. But many of the Chinese customers were complaining that it took so long for containers with that gel to reach China. And the customs clearance procedures would take also a long time. So for that purpose, we were developing an option with our partner, Russian partner, of constructing a point, a terminal for reloading at Nizhny-Nilinsk on the Russian side. And this is to finalize what I had to say. Indeed, there are those projects available to get acquainted with. You can read about them. Unfortunately, the time of our roundtable is up, and we have to wrap up the discussion. Just 3-4 items that I need to mention, some remarks to make I have. On the one hand, everyone is aware of the topic, and it has been discussed at various venues, but it seems that we do not know each other very well. We have to get together more often and discuss those issues to be able to resolve them by understanding them. But the market, the open market, serves its purposes. When it's open, we can discuss and find the possibilities of building new infrastructure. We have been talking a lot about it. We have to construct new infrastructure. This is a long-term work. You have to build a new Transsib, new BAM, Baikal Railway, And let us continue meeting together, discussing such issues. And prior to closing this discussion, let me, if I may, bring a letter of gratitude to Mr. Andreev as an active participant of Coordination Council for the active participation of their company. Thank you so much. And also a certificate of enrollment of KKSB company. All right, if they're not here today, thank you so much. We look forward to new meetings and discussions. Thank you.